Well, we all know what flooding is, but there's a certain type of flooding that's most dangerous. First Alert meteorologist Derek Witt explains in this new weather word of the week.
When the ground is already saturated or the rain is heavy enough, flooding can occur. We all know that. But there's a specific flood warning the National Weather Service issues for the most dangerous type of flooding, and that is flash flooding. A flash flood occurs when torrential or excessive rainfall leads to flooding in a short period of time, usually under 6 hours, but flash floods can and often do develop in just minutes. Flash flooding is usually observed as fast-moving torrents of water that can easily sweep away people, cars, and sometimes structures. The speed at which the flooding develops and the water moves is the danger, and it can quickly catch you off guard if you don't know it's coming. Riverbeds, mountain valleys, and urban streets are often most at risk for flash flooding because of how they funnel a lot of water down into narrow pathways. It can even happen when no rain is falling or has fallen where you are. Heavy rain upstream of your location, levee and dam failures, mudslides, and ice jams can all cause flash flooding. It's more common in drier places like the western United States, but it can happen anywhere when conditions are right. A flash flood warning is issued by the National Weather Service when precipitation capable of causing flash flooding is indicated by satellite, radar, or river gauge instrumentation. A dam failure or ice jam break is imminent or occurring, or flash flooding is currently underway as reported by law enforcement or rapid rises seen on river gauges. With this weather word of the week, I'm Derek Witt.